And also just having to practically be on top of this microphone. It's
Yeah.
just weird. And I'm not used to, see, I haven't done it in here before. So all of you are on a very large screen over there, which is great. But it's just.
All right, you're live.
Okay, we're live. Okay. Good morning. I'm calling the meeting of the Trees and Green Infrastructure Committee together. It is Friday, October the 8th, 10 o'clock. So the first thing we'll do is roll call. I'm just going to do it as I see your pictures on the screen. So say here or raise your hand when I call your name. Andrea Hoffman.
Here.
Joan Flaherty.
Here.
Bob Van Horn. Bob, here he is. Elise Burns.
Here.
And we are also joined by Liz Lingo today. And we have two members absent of Katie Downs. I have not heard from her. She's not here right now. She may join us. And then Liza Trey is unable to be here today. And in fact, that's on me. She had told me that and I forgot. But as a result, we're going to have to defer old business A on the tree mapping because that's an initiative that she's working on. I think that's actually fine because it turns out we've got a lot of other stuff to talk about and we'll probably easily fill the hour. But just wanted to make that note. For the minutes, has everybody read the minutes from the last meeting? Any corrections or notes or anything? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve them?
Motion to approve.
Second. Second from anybody?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so those are approved for the September 10th minutes. I know of no correspondence. I haven't gotten anything anyway. I have actually a bunch of updates. One of the main things is that I had asked Margaret Carson for us the spreadsheet update of donations. We've actually gotten 3 in just in the last week of almost $2,000 total. So, but I got an update and then I crunched some numbers this morning just seeing her spreadsheet. So, Joan, I can give you these separately if you don't have to write all these down, but I was going to tell you some of the interesting findings, and then when I have more time, I'll print out the spreadsheet and make sure this is 100% accurate. But for the current fiscal year, which we're really only just over 6 months into, so we're just over halfway into the fiscal year, we've raised $7,850. That compares to the total 2021 last fiscal year of $8,950. So I think we're on track to beat last year pretty handily. One of the interesting things is the $7,850 has come from 14 donations, whereas last year's came from 23 donations. So the average donation has gone up considerably. This year it's averaging $560. Last year it averaged $389. So we're getting more in bigger donations. The other thing I looked at before getting the update, because we had not had, before we got the 3 most recent donations, we hadn't had any for a couple months. So what I was looking at was what do we typically get or what did we get last year in the 4th quarter? Because I thought that might give us a hint as to what we could expect to get, this 4th quarter. And I also remembered that 4th quarter last year was a big donation period for us, and it was. There were $6,700 donated just in the 4th calendar quarter last year. That's the difference. The most of the data here is fiscal, but I was looking at the last calendar quarter. And we had 6,700 contributed. And of that, 4,000 of that was big donations, either 1,000 or 2,000 donations, but even so. And I think part of that is because of the publicity we did in the 4th quarter, and so maybe that's a good segue to talking about events and publicity, which is another part of the update. But does anybody have any questions about the level of donations so far? Okay, we're really doing well, I think. Really on track. And Joan is putting up more leaves today, right?
Yes.
Excellent, Joan.
So we just picked up, how many did you pick up?
Today, we'll put up 4 more leaves.
Okay, and then we got 3 more that are going out to the engraver next week as well. So
Wonderful.
tree keeps growing its leaves. But in terms of publicity, last time we did get confirmation from Andrew. We've got a table at the farmers market holiday, right?
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. And
Right. So I realized when I looked at the minutes that I had committed to do some an article, which I did not write, but I will recommit. I will get something written up that I will send to Lynn Cohn about us being at the farmer's market at the holiday farmer's market. And I'll ask her, I guess we could ask her to put something in the Gazette as well.
Yeah.
So
You mean, and
I'll
that's
see what I
just
can do,
about the
but I will
farmer's
take
market?
that on.
So that piece would just be about the farmer's market?
Well, no, I'll do a piece that will be larger than that. It will be about the status of what we've done this past year.
Oh, okay.
So I will need those numbers from Margaret.
Sure.
You'll get them to me
I'll
then?
get to, yes. Mhm.
Okay. And then I will do a piece that will be at the farmer's market. But what I was thinking about, they've taken some pictures of families that have donated. I've seen photographers there. I've seen people taking pictures. So that might be something nice to include.
It would be, yeah, it would be.
So I will gin something up and I'll circulate it. Okay. And I'll do it soon.
Okay, well, and actually, I think there's time in that I mean, I don't know what the ideal time for it going in, but it would seem like it wouldn't be now anyway. It would be sometime in
closer,
in
closer
like
to when
second week of
the
November or
holiday
something.
market is.
Yeah.
The
Right.
only other thing I want to ask for people that did this last year that were at the table, is there anyone who for sure is going to be here over Thanksgiving that weekend?
I am not.
I mean, last year it was Joan, Terry, and myself.
Right.
And Terry did a lot of running around to make the table look really nice. So we're gonna have to think
course.
about that.
Of course.
Of course. But I'm pretty certain we will be here.
Okay.
I'm happy to help again.
All right. I am up in the air, but given that this is important, I'm going to try and convince everybody to come here.
Okay.
Let me ask a question though about last year. Did Terry make up a big banner? She always makes up banners. Do you remember a banner?
No, she made up a very large poster that she placed on an easel. And what that did was, it was very nice. People would gather around the easel and she could describe the program.
Okay.
And it's
So-
an easy thing to do. I mean, a banner, I think sometimes when people have that on their table, they just walk right by. This engaged people quite a bit.
Yeah, it was eye-catching. I mean, I'm sure Terry, it's got to be somewhere.
No, I have the poster and I
you
have,
do?
yeah, I
And
do.
whose easel was it?
It was Terry's easel.
I'll get the easel.
The only issue we had was that it was windy. And so we have to think about how to make sure it stays on the easel, something we didn't think about.
Yeah, okay. All righty. I'll get the easel and is Terry due anytime soon? Anybody know? I'll call her. It's okay.
I don't
I
know.
mean, I
I'll
was going to
call.
ask if there were other materials you needed. I mean, obviously we have a lot of the brochures, so.
Brochure. I also have, I have some leaves as well. So,
Right.
And I also have some things left over from Arbor Day that may not be as beautiful as Terry's, but I do have some things that we
Good.
can,
So you think you
So-
have enough
yeah.
materials?
Maybe we could get some of those photos of the families.
That's what I am thinking about that.
Yeah.
I mean, we
I'm
could
gonna
even
see-
put them in frames and have them on the
or blow 'em
table.
up,
I
yeah.
think that would be really nice.
Yeah, where
I also
are the-
think it might be able to go into some sort of an article that we do.
Yeah,
I've
definitely, both.
definitely seen families taking
Mm-hmm.
pictures.
But where are those pictures? Do we get, I mean, I think I've seen one or two. I think Margaret may have sent me one. I mean, have you seen them too,
I
right?
don't know where they are, but Margaret's where I would start by asking.
Yeah, because I thought I had seen something, but I don't know that we would have a copy of all of them because unless they just happen to send them
And,
to
and
us.
actually, Joan, what time today are you going to putting those leaves up? I'll come take a picture.
Oh, probably right after the meeting. I brought them with me.
Of course, you're there.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody, if I can't get there, maybe somebody will take a picture.
Well, I can take a photo with my iPhone if you want on what the current leaf structure looks like.
No, I wanted you putting
Oh.
up new leaves.
Yeah, and I can do, I may,
Okay.
I may be able to do that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
'cause-
All right,
Wants
perfect.
an action photo of you.
Oh,
Right, yeah.
action.
I like it.
Oh, yeah.
I could probably do that.
Holding the
That's
tape.
great. Well, so if we have these kind of pictures, and that's a great idea, that's a wonderful idea to put these family pictures up. But if we do
And I
that,
think ultimately, what I'm picturing is a big collage of all the people, you know, the family groupings
Right.
and things like that.
Exactly.
If they would agree.
Yeah,
But I
that'd
think
be
that
great.
would be very
weren't,
nice.
weren't those pictures done by the city though? I'm pretty sure Lynn took them.
okay,
I-
oh,
I
that's right.
remember
There were
Lynn-
a
And
few
we
of
got-
them. Yeah, there were.
And
a
we've
few.
gotten permission.
Yeah, that's right.
So, okay. well,
Yeah, so
we'll-
do ask Lynn, because she's got several of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But does that then preclude the need for us to do a group picture? We were talking about doing a group picture by some of the new trees at Lake Avenue. Should we do both?
I think we should do both.
Because I
Yes.
was going to suggest, we obviously need a date to do that. And I was going to just maybe suggest that we can coordinate over email. It doesn't have to be in conjunction with a meeting. I think it's okay, even if it's more than a quorum of the group, to spend 5 minutes taking a photo. But I'm sort of looking at like toward the end of next week, if we don't do it today, but today the time's a little short.
Where there's still leaves before everything goes.
Right, yeah. Are you all around? Is everybody around next week? Bob, you're not, or? It'd be probably, I'm thinking pretty much any time Thursday. Well, Friday I could only do the morning.
I'll be here Friday, but not Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon.
Thursday afternoon or Friday morning?
I mean, if I'm not there.
Okay,
also
okay, well, let me, I can coordinate
Yeah,
that with an email.
I'm really up in the air, Susan, and I can talk to you offline.
Okay, fine, okay, yeah, well, and, yeah, if we don't do it next, I'm actually out the
Do it
phone.
at the beginning of the week? Is that
I can't
on
do
Monday?
Monday. I
No.
can't
Oh,
do
I could
Monday.
do
Okay, I'm just
Monday.
trying to think weekends for people, long weekends.
How about today?
It's a
Well,
good
I
day
mean,
for
we
that.
could do today if we did it,
Immediately.
before like 2:00, but the problem is I haven't lined up Lynn, so I don't know what her availability is.
I already have.
Yeah. So,
Oh, Katie's coming.
anyway. So okay, well, we'll try to coordinate
Yeah.
something, and even if we.
Susan, Katie's joining.
Oh, okay, great, wonderful. Okay, she's muted, but welcome, Katie. That's all right, no problem, we just got started. Okay, so anything else on the publicity then? In fact, that's kind of ties into one of the business items, but I ended up doing it during update, but that's okay. Actually, I wanted to ask Liz a couple of updates. I don't want to put her on the spot. You had told me that some of the plants in Lake Avenue are being replaced, right?
Everything is under warranty for a year.
For a year, so those are being replaced, that's fine. And have this, what's the status of the State Road Triangle? Do you know?
Yeah, we have to get updated estimates to provide to the state before they will finalize the funding.
Oh, so the funding hasn't actually come to us yet?
No, we don't have the money.
Okay, and so you're getting, so that's going to be a spring at this point, right? That'd be a spring planning?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. And then the ones on Munson were going to be this fall, right? We're only going to be like 4 or 5 of them.
That's still up in the air because we've had a lot of problems getting plant material, specific plant material that's the same manufacturing and production industry that are plaguing every industry
Yep.
or plaguing the tree industry. So all I can think is that maybe a year ago when, everybody was DIYing, that they bought up all the nursery stock.
Yeah.
I
So-
think they did.
well, that and it's been very hard, I think, for them to get employees as well.
Oh, I'm
so.
sure, yeah.
And then, of course, they have all the crazy weather events that are happening, and not
Right.
here, but some of
Right.
the bigger nurseries out west and the south.
Yeah. So you don't know if you're going to get them. You may not get them this month or next month.
Most of the specific species where we don't have flexibility aren't available until spring.
Okay.
But they said they're available. I mean, we're talking like some basic, like forest pansy, redbud, 3-inch size is not available right now.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's been pretty interesting.
Okay. And then, of course, at the last meeting, we talked about the Delaware Avenue ones. They're being postponed till the spring for budget reasons. That we were going to fund like 11 of them or something. We didn't have the budget to do it this year, so those got postponed to be next spring.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure what's happening. I think they had bid openings for the.
Oh,
the-
yeah, but I'm not sure the tree part is related to that.
No, it's not, but I mean, I think you want to do them somewhat in tandem, because if they're not, I mean, I'm assuming they're going forward with the project. I think
Yes,
the budget.
we'll be voting on it next Friday. They
Okay.
did do the bid opening. They've selected a contractor. I think I heard Kevin say they were going to start really soon, you know.
I
like-
don't think it's a long
Right,
thing,
yeah.
so.
So it'll
Well, I
be,
mean, the tree removal should be included as part of that, but
yeah,
the planting, whatever we do on the back end,
Yeah.
is not.
is not, right, because
So
they're going to
can
be
you-
down the street
Can
anyway.
you remind me what block on Delaware Avenue these trees are potentially going to be planted on? Is it?
We could do whatever. We could do the ocean block.
It's the ocean block, because that's where the Delaware Avenue restrooms are.
Unless
But we were going to do all down both sides of the block,
Yeah, I mean,
not
unless-
at the restrooms themselves.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
think there'll be any room, unless the committee decides they want to space them out in both blocks or move them. You know,
Right, okay.
it's not a big
Is
deal.
that something you have to order? I mean, if we're talking next spring, are they going to be available next spring, or is that something you have to order like now to have them available next spring?
Well, that's where our budget cycle comes into play, because those ordering, our budget turns over April 1, so you can
Right,
see
so
the
you-
problem there.
So you can't, right, so you can't even order them ahead of time because you'd have to pay for them ahead of time, you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, boy, well, I hope that ends up not being an issue.
Well, we're flexible on species for that, because we don't have to have a specific. So say we select this one type of deciduous magnolia. Well, they only have another similar type. We can change to what they have available
Okay.
versus specific cultivars of
Right.
species. So I don't think we'll have as much of an issue, hopefully,
Okay,
because we have that flexibility.
okay. Well, great, well, that's all I have in terms of updates. So, we've essentially done 6B, the opportunities to promote, and we put off the tree program. So I think we're going to move into our main topic, which is the Wilmington Baltimore Avenue Streetscape Project. And I can't thank Liz enough for offering to put together this introductory slideshow. I don't know if you all looked at it. It was posted on the agenda last night, but she's going to walk us through it. The various types of green infrastructure. It's just great to have this kind of overview, so I appreciate it.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead. Yeah, because what I have to share would be the graphics from that open house. If if people want to talk about them block by block, or if they want to just see them, I have that. But otherwise, I figured you'd do the presentation.
If I can figure out how to show, there we
Here.
go. The bright green button that says share. All right.
There's that share button at the bottom. There you go. Okay.
All right, let me put myself
Yep.
in presenter mode if I can. Okay. All right, perfect. Looks like I managed to do that. So this is just a brief overview. We won't go into any specific details, pros, cons, maintenance, any of that type of stuff, but at least we can have an idea of what's out there. And go over some of the different applications. Some of them are well suited to small scale, some are a little bit larger. One of the first things I wanted to start with was the storm chambers. So these, I think, currently aren't really considered green infrastructure, but they're not really gray either. There's a few different companies that make them, and they can go underneath a road, underneath a parking lot, underneath parks, and basically those big, I guess like a half pipe sort of deal, they hold, so that is 100% void space to hold water when there's a storm. And then you can put whatever you want over top of them. So they're a really cool application that a lot of corporations and a lot of developments do. I actually was cutting through to Lewis the other day, and there's an active construction site on Route 1, and they had a big pile of these stacked on the construction site. So I'll be interesting to see this weekend when I go by the same spot if they're actually installed yet. All right. So probably what most people think of for green infrastructure is bioretention. And generally, these are kind of what defines a bioretention area. So they're meant to receive the stormwater from a concentrated area. So a section of sidewalk, a downspout, a portion of the road. And it doesn't just hold the water, so it also treats the stormwater, which is an important thing. And generally there's 4 types of bioretention, and those types are kind of fluid in my mind. But this one I think everybody is familiar with, the whatever you want to call it, bulb out, bump out, curb extensions. So basically we take the right of way and then we push it out a little, and in between the road and the curb you get these landscape areas. And you can see in this one, right where my tiny little cursor is one of the curb cuts. So you can design it a few different ways, but this one is designed to take water from sheeting from the center of the road down into this curb cut that then goes into the curb extension. And then you see this little device here is actually an overflow control, so that if we get, or they get, this is Philly, if they get a crazy storm, the water doesn't just rise up and flow back onto the sidewalk and the road. It goes through this overflow device that's connected to the regular stormwater system. Okay. These are pretty cool. They're bioretention planters, and they can be done in 2 different ways. One is kind of the diagram on the left, which is a little pixelated, but gets the idea of across. It's basically like the one I just showed you, but it's walled, usually with concrete, you can see there. And same thing, the water flows in usually via an opening there, and then it drains out, and you can see the little under drain down here so that it doesn't overflow. And on the other side here, these are actual planters, and believe it or not, they are also connected to the stormwater system under the bottom here, but they collect the downspout runoff into, in the series, they're all linked. So you have 2 collection spots there that feed those 4 containers. And that's actually a specific company you can buy them from that make these. Rain gardens, which I think we're all pretty familiar with. So they're very, very good for small scale, usually residential, maybe a spot treatment if you have commercial. Generally, they do not have that overflow control, that device that ties it into the stormwater system. So if you have a strange low spot in your yard, or a spot that always seems to get a puddle and maybe a garden would look good, that's where you would tie in a rain garden. Okay. The bioretention cells or swales. So these, like the one on the right, you can have those interconnected, a series of them. And this one is from Maryland. They have a program there where they turn the right-of-ways into the bioretention cells. And it's interesting because the feedback went both ways on those. Some people love them, and some people thought they were ugly. I guess the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You can also see here they have the same deal, the covered curb cut. And they like to have the curb cuts covered when they're in the road so that people's tires and bikes or whatever don't end up smashing into it.
Yeah.
And on the left, I think is pretty similar to what we just did on Lake Avenue Phase 2.
Okay.
So you see the overflow control there. You see a couple of curb openings, and this is, I think, mostly a parking lot here. So I think that's why it's kind of similar to ours. It has a similar curb opening because it's just a parking area. Okay. We have the permeable pavements, in which we have 4. So mostly they're used for walking and parking. We did the porous asphalt at City Hall for a lot of the parking spaces. And then if you've ever been to the Del Dot facility along Route 1 up in Lewis, they actually have the pervious concrete. And you can certainly tell the difference, I think more so aesthetically with the concrete versus the asphalt. For better or for worse, aesthetically it doesn't matter to me, but I could right away tell it was different. We also have these plastic grids here. So they take those and they fill them with gravel and different growing medium, and then you can put plants in them. They're good, I think, if you have a spot that maybe you occasionally will park a vehicle on. I wouldn't think that you would want to park vehicles long-term there. And then we also have permeable pavers. So permeable pavers are concrete, and basically they just have a little, so the paver itself is not permeable. The permeable part is the gap between the pavers, which generally is a little wider with the permeable pavers. And then they fill those with a certain type of stone so that it creates that void space for the water.
And the base is permeable too.
Yeah, so it's not a concrete base, it's usually a specific type of stone or gravel base,
Right.
as deep as it needs to go. So it's the same when we did the porous asphalt for City Hall. I think we did, I could be getting this number wrong, I'm trying to remember what he told me, but it was like 3 feet of gravel before we put that asphalt on top of it. And so everywhere where you have that gravel, it holds water, stores it, so that it can then drain. Now with these, you can have an under drain connection to the stormwater system. Some do, some don't. Now we go on to the tree trenches, and there's a few different ways to do these. These 3 I've listed are proprietary. So Silva Cell, which is by a company called Deep Root, that also makes arbor tie, which is kind of like the flat woven tree wrap you'll see that will hold them to stakes versus like a wire. Structural soil, CU Structural Soil, which is done by Cornell. And then there's a couple others like called Tree Pod, but they work in a way that it's kind of like a suspended pavement. So they have these little support structures, grids that go under the road and sidewalk. And you can see they create all this open space for the soil, which then holds water and nutrients and has the tree roots, gives them room to grow. So all you see above ground is just a small area for the tree. It doesn't have to have a 10 by 20 tree pit above ground. It could be sidewalk or pavers or whatever. But below ground, it has all this area. So it would kind of be a twofold thing. It allows you to plant a large tree in a commercial area. And then it also catches, treats, and stores all that stormwater. So in this one, it has a catch basin leading right to it. And then it also, they have under drains, which connects them so it doesn't flood the street. It connects it back to the stormwater system. And a lot of cities use these. They are expensive at the initial versus just digging out a 3x5 pit and throwing your soil and tree in there. But long-term, you do end up with, you can see up here, this is an example of a project, you end up with healthy, larger trees, and then you don't have the rooting problems busting up sidewalks. Oops. So these are really cool. They've done them at a number of, universities, commercial sites, Lincoln Center, all those different. If you Google them, they'll come up with a million spots they were done. We have a couple of different roofs. One is a green roof and the other is a blue roof. The green roof, you have 2 types. One type is just a shallow soil, which is what this one is. This is actually a green roof that I worked on when I was working in New York City at one of the Parks buildings. So we did, I think it was like 4 to 5 inches of soil there and planted mostly native sedums. You can do a deeper soil. It's a lot harder in terms of like structural support for the roof, because this was a retrofit. But you end up with deeper soil. You can have trees, shrubs, larger plants, that type of stuff. A blue roof, which people don't really know about, it's not as exciting because it's not pretty, but it's essentially a layer of gravel to store the stormwater. Now, most people are probably familiar with at least the rain barrels, and that's actually my rain barrel at my house. Yeah, but you can do it large scale, like this cistern. They can be hooked up to irrigation. You can do a lot with those. They are generally tied to a downspout. So specific spot treatments, and they do work very, very well. A lot of people even use their rain barrels for irrigation, but can help a lot with stormwater treatment and flooding and stuff like that. This is another type. So this is a specific type of dry well that you can purchase. It's another one that's usually connected to a downspout. You can also connect them to a yard drain. So if you have a spot that puddles and it's say the middle of your yard and you don't want a rain garden, this would be an option. So you can either buy and install this product, a flow well, which is just a big container with an open bottom surrounded by gravel, or you can just dig a hole, line it with fabric, and fill it with gravel. So I think this particular one, the flow well, holds about 50 gallons because it's completely void inside. And then I found this graphic, and I thought it was really interesting because we're talking about the streetscape. Because not everything could or should be used every time you do a project. They all have different applicability and uses, and that's why we have engineers who can figure all this stuff out. And I think that the city itself is pretty invested in the environment and maintaining our natural resources. So I think we're always looking at stuff like this, but it's a perfect example of how to incorporate all these things in a redesign, a streetscape. And it's much easier to do this fresh and new than trying to retrofit. So if you guys have any questions, I can certainly answer them. I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole, though.
Well, why don't you, let's see, I guess take the screen share down so we can all be back on.
Yep.
And then, thank you. That is just, as I said, it's a great overview.
Yeah, good primer.
Yeah. Do you all want me to put up the charts that were used in that open house for the streetscape project, or did you look at them already? And I mean, I wouldn't necessarily keep them up if you don't want me to, but I didn't know whether it'd be useful to just kind of see what was shown and where they are right now. They're at very early stage, so it's just concepts. But
That'd be great.
okay, let
Yeah.
me see if I can do that. Yeah, here, okay.
Liz, are there monies set aside for the stormwater portion of the project?
I haven't really been involved because it's all still conceptual, so I
Okay.
wouldn't be the best
So
person to ask
That's
about
something we'd
budgeting.
want to advocate for then.
Yeah, I mean,
Sounds
there's no
like-
budget at
Yeah.
all yet for it, none
Okay,
at
no
all.
budget at all.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. And in fact, I'm gonna go back.
I guess no cost estimate would be the better way to say that.
Right,
There's
yeah,
always some
there's-
sort of
yeah.
budget.
Trying to go back to the
Well,
beginning.
because, in looking at all these posters,
How do I
it
do
just,
the,
as Susan emphasized, this is Del Dot, so they're focused on the traffic safety, walkability,
right,
blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah,
they
that-
really haven't focused on the green infrastructure at all.
right. And the lettering is very tiny on this one, but this was one actually that they had shown early on in the committee meetings as well. And there has been a task force that's been meeting for some months, a task force of, I guess, about 16 people, combination of business owners and residents, and they've been, hashing all this out. But at the very beginning, the consultant and DelDOT, set the objectives in consultation with this task force. And I was pleased to see, you'll see that the main objectives for it are to provide ADA accessible walkways and to widen the walkways, and increase safety and visibility at crosswalks, increase safe pedestrian and bicycle travel, increase connectivity to the boardwalk and Rehoboth Avenue, increase lighting and safety, and then incorporate green infrastructure. So green infrastructure has been in there as an objective from the beginning. I don't know if there's any significance that it's last, or whether these are just all objectives and they're all kind of equally ranked. But there's nothing in the concept plan right now, and what I've been told is it's because it's very early on.
Yeah.
And that they're just basically looking at the broadest kind of picture now in pedestrian circulation and how wide the streets are going to be and how wide the sidewalks are going to be. And there's a little bit, you'll see this when we go through it, there's a couple of areas where there's concepts for incorporating trees or plantings, but I believe those are at the very end of the street, at the boardwalk end of the street, and that's all that's there so far. So, this is one, let me see. Yeah, I guess most of it. So we can just, take the first one, which is the first block of Wilmington Avenue, and they have added bike boxes and taken away parking spaces to do that. They've widened the travel lanes. There's more of a shared bike roadway. And this one has the concept only over on the side, and I think that's for the very end. So on the big picture, it would be the green area, pedestrian plaza, and then that concept only thing that shows what could be done in the pedestrian plaza. But I guess my main thing, especially since, Liz was talking about not being able, or it being a lot better not to have to retrofit. But
Right.
I think we also have to encourage them to include the green infrastructure in and certainly in the very next phase of the concept, not let it go too much further down the road before it's incorporated, because you have to allow space for it, and it will affect other elements of the design, right, Liz?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You don't want them to get it 70% design and have nothing incorporated and then say, well, we need
Right.
XYZ, and then they kind of have to go back and kind of redo their work. That's, that would be
Right.
frustrating for everybody, I think.
Sure.
It's always a fight for the public space between parking, bikes, pedestrians, outdoor dining, outdoor, just recreation, like the seating space, trees, benches, lighting, utilities. There's so many uses that, we just have to be cognizant that we don't kind of relegate the last seat at the table to the
Right.
green infrastructure and the trees.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to take advantage of this comment period that's open till the end of October. So what I thought I would do is, maybe with Joan's help from the minutes, is go through and put together a sort of a summary of our input and viewpoints about it, and make sure that Dell gets that right now during the public comment period and before they move on to the next steps. So I guess I'll throw it out there. I made a few notes as Liz was going through her presentation about things I thought might work there, but let me also, throw it out to you all. What do you think?
Well, I was just curious about the buffer area. Is that where people would put trees?
What buff?
When they describe the sidewalk and they have lanes, for pedestrian, how much room when you open a door to a store. And then they had this buffer area where you'd have a fire hydrant or a utility pole and I thought that wasn't very wide. And so I just wondered, is that where you're thinking of green infrastructure, or would green infrastructure somehow be out on the street area?
I think in this design, the yellow, which is the circulation path, I think that's where the benches and the lighting and the trees would go.
That's not a lot of room.
Looks
Hardly any.
Yeah, like I said,
I wanna add,
everything.
I had the same thought, Joan, when I looked at it. It just did not look very wide. Not much room for anything. I had
Yeah.
the same impression.
Well, and that's where something like maybe the Silva Cells would come into play, because you don't need a lot of, and same with the permeable concrete, pavement, stuff like that, you don't need a lot of above ground space. But don't forget, we'll be fighting for space below ground too, because they want to move the utilities there.
Right, yeah.
And now if the there'll probably be setbacks and stuff like that. Usually if the utilities are sheathed, that's not a big deal, but I don't know all, that would be for the engineers.
Liz, can utilities run through Silva Cells?
I think it depends on your code. There are certain setbacks for things, but I think it's a little different everywhere. And usually if they're sheathed, they're in the not just like a bare wire buried in the ground. Usually if they're
Right.
sheathed, they're okay. But I don't
Yeah.
want to speak out of turn on that one without doing a ton of research. I know it's
Yeah,
done. I know
I've
it's done.
I think, I'm pretty sure I remember being in a lecture where they were showing pictures of sheathed
Mm-hmm.
utilities
Yep.
in a conduit running through Silva Cells.
Yes, exactly. But there might even be different setbacks for sewer versus stormwater. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it can be done. Now, is it 100% applicable here? Maybe there's something that prevents it from being done. It's possible. But yeah, the yellow space is not large. That's for
And
sure.
you're basically saying whatever is done would be essentially done in that area?
Well, if you do something like Silva Cell, it could go under the sidewalk, under the road. For the rain
Right.
barrels and stuff like that, I think that's more applicable to the private businesses. But
Right.
if you notice now, wouldn't that all be preferable instead of having a drain that just runs into the
Oh, yeah.
road with a bunch of, that's,
In fact, that's what
Nasty.
when you showed pictures of the bioretention planters,
Mhm.
and there were those narrow ones up against, but I thought that would seem to be
Yeah.
a possibility here because they're made for narrow spaces.
Exactly. So, there's things that can be done, in cooperation with the businesses, and that way all their stormwater discharge just doesn't go across the sidewalk or is routed like on Rehoboth Avenue. You get a combination, it goes across
Yeah.
and it goes under and comes out into the road. And,
Yeah.
I'm trying to not just environmentally be good stewards, but also that's just sheer aesthetics.
Mhm.
Nobody
yeah.
wants to walk through that in their flip-flops.
Okay. Yeah, I thought those were good. And then I don't know if there's going to be any room for, I think the city's done a good job with swales. we have the one at City Hall.
Mhm.
And,
We have two. We have
Two, and then in the Lake Avenue project, and of course the school made use of swales. But probably in something like this, there really isn't room for that.
Street end would be a
Yeah,
possibility.
right. So as part of this pedestrian access plaza area.
Well, and it's funny you say the room, because the one thing I left out of my presentation were wetlands, because you can create wetlands,
course,
but that's
yeah.
usually like a few acres.
Yeah, right,
So
yeah, exactly.
if we ever have the room somehow, I'll bring that one back up.
So let's see, okay.
What is on the first
Yeah, okay, I'll go back. Yeah.
on the first black, what is what's the brown area that surrounds the turnaround drop-off zone?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
That could potentially be used for trees if it was pedestrian walkway.
I can't tell if that is, I'm looking at the legend, and I can't tell if the brown is scooter parking.
I don't think it's on the legend.
It doesn't look like it's on
I
the
think
legend.
that is
They may just be describing the turnaround.
I think that's
Yeah,
the
maybe
drop
that's all
off.
it is. Okay.
I
yeah.
think the
turnaround.
brown
That's
is
just the
the brown
drop-off.
is where the vehicles would pull off, and then what is the gray road is where they'd be able to continue to turn around.
Okay, gotcha.
And part of the reason I continued scrolling here is I was just looking to see if the circulation path is similar in the various blocks, and it does look, here it's a little wider on one side and narrower on the other side. But otherwise, there's the first block, they are similar. And here, Katie, the Baltimore Avenue first block shows a very large block for no parking turnaround area.
Yeah.
So, You
guess
know, I
that
would
can't
think there'd be
used.
Yeah.
some room for something in going around that. Right?
Yeah.
In addition to, and there's another concept drawing over on the side of what could go in the limited vehicle access area. And I am glad to see that. I'm glad to see these pedestrian plazas at the end of the block. I think looks really nice.
Yeah.
How large are those
I mean,
pedestrian plazas?
what would we do with that pedestrian plaza? Would it just be wide open? Or would that be someplace where we could put trees?
Well, I
I
think
mean,
it- I
it's
think that
tougher
would be the
because it's at
idea.
the end of the boardwalk, closer to the ocean.
Ocean.
Yeah, I mean, they already have some, I don't know whether those are trees or plant or just bushes or what, but they already have some drawn in that concept.
Yeah, it's too hard to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing it would have benches or,
Mhm.
that it would be an area for, walking, maybe a little bit of sitting.
Well, that's the beach patrol blocks. I think that's all up in the air, but right
Yeah,
now
it's true.
they have the little pavilions.
Yeah, the little,
And so I think the other street we looked at, Wilmington, had the blue sailcloth, like triangle.
Yes, that one,
That's
uh-huh.
what that is. Okay.
Yeah.
oh,
That's what that is.
that is, oh, okay.
Well, that's what that is, a cover, sort of sailcloth cover?
Oh.
Yeah, have you seen
sailcloth.
that? Do you know what I
I
mean
have
when
seen those. I don't
yeah.
know if I like them or not.
Yeah.
I've seen them.
Well, they're considered beachy. I think
Yeah.
that's all up in the air. But the point is, there's going to be some pedestrians covered seating there, like we have now. I
Right,
think
okay,
the
fair enough.
aesthetics are
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Oh, and it does say something about plants
Oh, yeah,
raised.
definitely.
Those are planters then, I guess?
It says
Around the-
planters and some trees.
Planters with.
mean-
Yeah,
Seating
it
and
does say
trees.
plants and trees.
Mhm.
Liz,
Hard to
Like
read.
6.
realistically, what kind of trees are we talking about that could be on the boardwalk?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that with Delaware. It's a limited list.
Right.
The further you get away from the water, the better. Getting something to grow right
Yeah,
there
it's
is
hard.
Right.
Yeah, I wondered about
going to
that.
be a really large input of
Oh.
effort and money and time.
Right. I mean-
That's why if you look at the street ends right now, they're pretty much, they were planted as dunes. So you have
Right.
goldenrod, beach grass, and yucca.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's,
I mean,
Liz, what trees are planted right at the boardwalk in the first block of Rehoboth Avenue that they're all pretty much dying?
I don't, well, there's
Like in front of the ice cream store and on
Well,
that side
there's-
specifically, there are 4 or 5 not looking very good.
yeah, there's like 3 honey locusts that are gonna have to come out. They were part of the original streetscape because they're on this. Think about the way that our storms come northeast. That's why they would be hit on that side and not on the north side of Rehoboth Avenue.
Okay. But
And that's why you can
oh,
see
yeah.
like the east side of them is bare, and the canopy shape is kind of windswept. It's directly from the storms.
I just think we should speak up now and say that these pictures that they're showing us with these trees, it's questionable. And, we know that. It seems kind of strange to just let these go, and they look like nice pictures, but I just don't see how we're really ever going to do something like that where they've placed these trees.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame there's not something like that a little further back, but
Exactly.
don't know where you'd,
Exactly.
there's no room. I don't know where you would have, I don't know where you'd put it. But yeah, that's gonna be a challenge. You hate to lose the opportunity.
Right,
For-
but I mean, we know that we just can't really get that kind of thing.
Right.
Liz, in your mind, is there anything that can work there as far as trees?
I mean, I'm sure we can
should
make.
comment now on these things.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't remember what was decided about Delaware. I know they're trees, but what did we decide, Liz? you-
Well, I'd rather stick to this right now. So there are certain species that certainly can do okay. But what the issue would be is the input. So how much money and time will it take for this one tree? We could have 4 other trees a block back. So that's where we'll have to, that being said, the boardwalk is our centerpiece. So it's
Yeah.
worth extra effort. But we've had really good luck with the Japanese silk lilac trees oceanfront. Hollywood junipers do really well. There's some of the crepes seem to do okay. And then
Hollywood
the other
myrtles,
species that
the
does well
crepes.
is invasive. So we'll
Look, short ones,
keep.
short crepes.
Yeah, so no Japanese black pines. We'll keep those out of there.
Some of the scrubby oak species will do okay. I know they're growing.
Yeah.
I know they're growing down here on Norfolk Street.
Yeah, and they don't look like there are some of those oaks that would be okay. And
They're
it's
not
kind of like the
pretty.
same, it would be like the same as the pitch pine. Like it could probably adapt, but it will never fit our definition of looking nice there, I guess is the best way to put it.
So does that mean they just wouldn't live as
them-
long, have to be replaced more often, or?
Well, yeah, all of that, but like the pitch pine, when it grows near the water, gets this like, instead of growing up and straight like a normal pine tree, it starts growing kind of like funky and
Right.
sideways,
Yes.
and it's cool,
Yeah.
but it's probably not what you would want down, like it might not even get to the height to clear vertically for the parking area. So it would be hard, but there are plants we could get to grow there, and if it's important, then we could figure out a way to make it work.
Well, I do think there needs to be something there because we don't want to waste the space.
Well, and the one thing I would not like to see would be hardscaping,
Absolutely.
because we need to work being resilient
Yep.
for our storms and all that. The last thing we want is more hardscaping close to the ocean.
Right, exactly. Well, in fact, that's a good sort of segue into what are the opportunities for permeable paving? Because I know, there's been some resistance in the city to do it because of the increased maintenance. And I think I saw in your presentation where you said they're better for walking and parking areas. So I take that to mean not driving areas, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of them can be driven on, but generally they're more commonly used for like sidewalks, parking lots, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there is maintenance. You have to vacuum them.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
You know, so we have to have the staff and the equipment to make sure that gets done. And that's not just going through with a street sweeper every day either.
Right, yeah.
So, and we all know how hard hiring has been.
Yeah, well, this
So-
project is a few years off, but I mean, still, so that's the downside.
Yeah,
is-
I mean, you have to look at it as an investment. How much extra work and money will it cost to throw all the untreated stormwater in the ocean?
Right.
I mean, to
Yeah.
me, one
Yeah, I
beach
mean-
closure will totally take away any cost
Oh,
savings
absolutely.
we have. Like, the best thing we can do is treat the stormwater before it goes into the lake or the ocean or wherever.
Absolutely.
So whatever the engineers and the public works director and the designers can figure out, whether it's 10%, 2%, 50%, it's better than having a gutter and throwing all the water right into the storm drain.
So is it possible to have a combination of permeable and not permeable in the project?
Yeah, I
In
don't
terms
see,
of sidewalks?
sidewalks?
Well, that's where it would probably be, right? Or you're saying the parking areas maybe too?
You could do parking and sidewalks. I mean, like here at City Hall, the parking, like the
Yeah.
drive areas of the parking lot are regular, and the parking spaces
Okay.
are the
Right.
porous asphalt.
And you can't, I don't think that's noticeable.
No.
Not at
I mean,
all.
if you know to look for it, you can tell.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a bad thing to have this stuff noticeable. People should notice what we're doing.
Yeah, okay,
right?
true. Yeah.
I mean, you don't want it
right.
to be ugly,
Right.
but at the end of the day, it's concrete and asphalt. Like, how good can it
That's
really
true.
look?
Well, but actually, that's one of the questions. It's more maintenance. Has this parking lot been more maintenance?
I mean, they have to vacuum it a
Okay.
couple times. I mean, I think ideally we were told 2 times a year.
Huh, that's
Yeah.
not bad at all.
No.
I thought when you
How
said
much do
vacuum
you
it, I
have
thought
to
you meant like
vacuum it?
twice a week or something.
No, it was recommended 2 times a year.
Okay.
Oh.
I think you can
Okay,
adjust.
Oh, that's not bad at all. So
Wish I
the
could do
maintenance
my
level,
house
the
like
actual
that.
maintenance level of this parking lot has been manageable.
Well, I'm not the one doing the maintenance, so you would have to ask
Ask
Public
Kevin.
Works.
But still,
Do these surfaces last as long? Do they have to be replaced sooner?
I don't think so. I think it's a similar time frame, but don't quote me on that one.
so then that would be a possibility, is to have the parking areas. Be
Yeah, or just the sidewalk,
Yeah.
you know, and then think like power washing the sidewalks and stuff like that. It
Yeah.
would be a little, the other good thing they say about these, and hasn't really been an issue here the last couple of years, is it eliminates, like, because snow can melt,
Mm-hmm.
it goes down through those pore spaces on the road and on the sidewalk. So it doesn't melt and then refreeze into ice. So it melts and goes through the spaces.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be a lot better for
That's safer.
yeah, snow removal and ice related stuff.
Right. Okay. Well, so what are we down to? It seems like, and I'll probably end up watching this again and also talking to Joan, make sure I capture everything. But what I'm generally hearing is that we want them to plan it in the next phase so that it is not an afterthought. There are various bioretention, both the planters as well as things like the Silva Cells. I forget what the category of that was.
Tree trenches.
Tree trenches, right.
Well, I think you guys make your pitch and see if you can get the commissioners on board, that the engineers can start looking, because they haven't
Yeah.
gotten there yet, on what we can incorporate and where, and what our goals are with the green infrastructure. Not to just incorporate it, but, you know,
Yes.
not just like one kind of fun little demonstration, educational type project, but
Right.
like
Well,
an-
but to actually be useful for managing our stormwater, yeah, right?
well, yeah.
I mean, that should be the goal.
That's a good point.
Can we add any sort of cost analysis to this? And I mean in really general terms, so that what's a beach closure cost, like Liz was mentioning there, versus,
Well,
over the long term, to add some of these aspects in this green infrastructure? Can we have
Yeah.
some sort of comparison? Like
yeah,
I said,
that would be.
large
I don't know where those
Yeah,
numbers
and
would
I don't
come
know,
from.
I've always heard, like, for example, that the permeable paving is a lot more expensive, but nobody's really ever given me numbers on.
Well, we would have it from city, somewhere
Okay,
buried
okay.
in mounds and mounds of documents would be the city hall cost. I mean, because it's a lot of, they have to excavate a few feet down to do
Right.
that. So it is more work, but then you look at the price of extending. I mean, I remember a few years ago, they looked at those different recommendations. I forget what company. I don't think you were even a commissioner at this time, but they gave price different.
GHD's report?
Was that who it was? All the
yeah.
different options you could do, and one of them was
Right.
like
I
one of
should
the
look
main
at that.
ones was extending the outfalls to
Right,
get that
Yep.
stormwater further away at a cost of X millions.
right.
So
I do remember that.
So I was wondering that they were supposed to align this with the Comprehensive Development Plan of 2010. And I just, haven't lined it up yet, but I'm not sure the vision was the same. I mean,
Well, the pedestrian part, I mean, I think there's a lot in the CDP about having fewer, in fact, one of the often quoted lines is that the city can accommodate more people, but not more cars. I think there are a lot of
Right.
people right now would say we can't accommodate more people either, but it's kind of
Right.
another story. But
But-
yeah, there was a whole push toward pedestrian friendly and
right,
all that.
areas. And so
Yeah.
that's why I wondered, just looking at the first ocean block, because it's so hard to plant trees at the very end, where they are calling that a transition to the beach, that you just not have traffic on that street. And
Yeah.
I know stores are
Yeah,
very
I would
concerned
love
about that, but everything I read says that stores do better when there's a pedestrian plaza in front of it.
Yeah.
That people mill around more and buy more and all that.
yeah, if you,
But-
I think it was like in the beginning of COVID, Key West closed off sections of Duval.
Hear you.
And it was, I remember reading an article about it, and the businesses that weren't part of the closed off street sections where traffic could still go through were upset. They wanted the cool plaza that the middle blocks
Right.
got.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, that's a cultural thing. That any discussion that there's been over the years to do that here has met with resistance from the businesses in that area. But I agree with you. I think it makes all the difference. It's just,
well, long term, I think what you're referring to is we want to encourage more biking, more walking,
Right.
scooters, that type of stuff, and less people driving in
Right,
and
exactly.
parking.
I mean, they're making space for turnaround rather than just eliminating, like having your turnaround the block before or something, but.
Well, I think that's a lot to do with deliveries and trucks.
Well, you can
Oh.
allow for that. You can, all those pedestrian plazas do allow for deliveries of restaurant trucks and all of the, supplies that they need, and emergency vehicles certainly, but they'll narrow it to one lane. And I'm just looking at the square footage on this thinking, you're on a sidewalk and it's extended a little bit, but then there's a little tiny space for greenery, and then you've got 2 lanes.
Yeah.
I mean, the classic, one of the classic examples is Burlington, Vermont. I mean, the Church Street is a pedestrian mall.
Yep.
And at, during the majority of the day, but, in the mornings, they allow delivery
Right.
vehicles.
Interesting.
No, I've seen
And,
those. They'll bring
you can look at
forwards.
Boulder, Colorado,
Another place, yeah.
and, those are some of the first pedestrian malls around.
Yeah, yeah.
I think they have a lot of merit. They have a lot of downfalls too, but they definitely have a lot of merit, so.
Well, yeah, a lot of innovative thinking to make to put those type of changes
Yeah,
into action, like one-way streets and, like pedestrian malls. Those are big changes,
Right,
and that's hard for people.
Yeah.
All of us, myself included, so.
yeah.
Okay, well, I'll try to capture all the various things we've talked about here and give them feedback, and we'll wait for the next steps, I guess, right? But thanks, Liz, again, that was very and I hope maybe there are other parts of the city that we can do some of those in too, not just the streetscape project,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
going
we've
forward.
managed to incorporate some
Yeah.
stuff here and there as you go along, but it's much easier new.
Right, oh, absolutely, yeah. Okay, and, technically, we're out of time, which, I mean, I think if we go 1 or 2 minutes over, it'll be okay, but I will say that rather than having a full-blown discussion about educational activities, that I guess we'll do that next time. But Andrea, do you want to say anything at all about some of the things you're thinking about, or you want to give us assignments of things to think about?
Well, I got in touch with my University of Delaware person who got us Doug Ptolemy, and he's on it. He's also going to be thinking about the extension service as well. So he's promised me a list.
Okay, oh, great,
That
perfect.
helps.
So, I mean, you would have that next time, you think?
Yep, I will have that next time.
Okay, look at the calendar now.
A list of speakers?
Speakers, yes.
Wonderful, okay. All right, well, thank you, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I guess we're up to committee member comments. Anything or items for future agendas? Let me just look up to see. We know we're going to be talking about the tree map. We know we're going to be talking about educational opportunities. I guess those are the main things for next time. So looking at the calendar, the next meeting would be on November 12th. Does that work for everybody? Which is, that's our regular time. We do occasionally move it, but that's our regular time. And otherwise, there are no citizens here to comment. So if nobody has anything else, I guess we'll adjourn. Good?
Thank you,
Okay, well,
Liz.
thank you all very much.
Thank you, Liz.
We only
That
ran
was a
5
great
minutes.
presentation, Liz.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
The graphics really helped quite a bit.
I like pictures and presentations.
Yeah, the pictures
Right.
are perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
can't do
you.
that. Well, thank you all. Appreciate it.